Hey everybody, Jay Schlansky here from the Fifth Trooper Network. I just want to take a moment to thank you for checking out this show. Did you know that over at thefifthtrooper.com we have tons of other content, including blogs, other podcasts, all kinds of stuff. In addition, if you want access to exclusive content, you can join us on patreon.com/thefifthtrooper and join at any level and you'll get access to exclusive blog articles, access to our private Discord, and much more. So please check us out, and thank you so much for all your support.
Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Mike and Jay. What's up, gentlemen?
Hey.
Hello. Well, I'll tell you what's up. We've completely redone our website. So
Awesome.
if you haven't been there in the last couple days, this past weekend, I redid the entire site. New design, new logos, all that stuff, and yeah, we're actually changing things up a little bit, and things will come back. Some things will come back, some won't. But as we progress, I'm just doing it in stages right now. But yeah, we have a whole new designed website and format and how we're doing things. So yeah, check that out. It's pretty cool.
I think it's great.
Oh, thanks.
I
Yeah,
think it's great.
we're trying to really focus on the content, and
Yeah.
we've got really three big uh uh silos that we're in right now. We're going to expand, but we've got a ton of Legion content, obviously. Matt's been killing it with the Shatterpoint content, and then Kingsley's been killing it with the unlimited content. So we've got a really a ton of great content, and we're focused more on that and getting you to the places you need to be in order to read that, and just instituting some new technologies, new designs. I've got some other really cool things planned. I'll tease one that I'm working on right now is some gamification stuff. So eventually being able to earn points and badges and stuff for liking posts or reading posts or sharing them and stuff like that, and all kinds of different things. I'm still kind of working out the details of that, but yeah, I got the back end all implemented. It's just, what does that mean to you, and what do you get for the points? So if you have ideas, pop them up in the comment section. Right next to the comments, it says Jay hates Legion. Tell me what to do with the points and the gamification.
How was speaking of, you guys did Empire last week, is that right?
Yeah.
We did,
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm sad that I missed it.
Well, we know you know
Um,
nothing about Empire, so I
Yeah.
figured it'd be a good one to do while you weren't here.
It just went
uh-huh.
way smoother without you here, actually.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah,
was
I
funny.
believe it. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, well, I'm back, and today we're gonna do a couple things. We're gonna do another faction change breakdown. That faction will be rebels for reasons that will become obvious in the first briefer section, which is going to be talking about MKGT, which was, I think, technically the second like major tournament with the new rule set. There was Salt Lake Open, which I think was only like 40-ish players. MKGT was like 90 something players.
Mm.
So certainly the largest tournament so far with the new edition.
Yeah, it was 92.
92. Yep. So and that's the Milton Keynes Grand Tournament for those that are not into the UK acronyms. But yeah, that was this past weekend, so we're going to talk about the results of that briefly, and then we're going to dive into
Briefly.
Rebels. So I know we don't really
Jay's
do
concerned
anything
about how
briefly.
long this episode's going to take,
Yeah.
guys.
Because I got to wake up early, and I'd like to be reasonably not tired for
Well, you
that.
will sit here and you will like it.
Well,
We'll
I'll
just cut off
sit
the
here.
recording.
I'll for sure sit here. I don't know if I'll like it, but I'm here. Yeah, anyways, and then just real quick, I know you guys are probably sick of me talking about this, but I'll just mention it one more time. This is the last week for the Kickstarter with Game Toppers, so if you want to go get a mat, you could just go to the Kickstarter, search Game Toppers, and do the a la carte mode one, and then you can pick your mats after in the backer pledge. So yeah, so go do the Kickstarter this last week. It's funded. We're just looking to unlock some of them sweet unlockables or whatever they're called. So yeah.
I believe they're called stretch goals, Jay.
Stretch goals, that's the word. Thank
Yep.
you, Mike. Yeah.
Yep.
Get
We're
them
working.
sweet
Jay's an old
stretch
man,
goals.
apparently.
Get
Not
them
up to date with those kids with their
yeah.
lingo.
Oh, I got the little locks on there and I want to unlock them. I want to unlock all of them. How do I do that? Yeah. So go do whatever Mike said about stretching.
Yep. Make it your goal.
Yeah, make it your goal to stretch today.
You should always stretch every
Yeah.
day,
That's true.
especially before exercising. But
I stretch my mind before every podcast.
there you go. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I'm KGT
Let's talk about it. It's a tournament, 90 players,
92.
92.
Yep.
Hit me with the high altitude points here, Kyle. What do we got?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, you can't look at it round by round in Longshanks, at least not in a way that I've figured out. But going into, I think the final 2 rounds, there were 6 4-0s. So we're gonna briefly go with that as like a kind of a snapshot point.
Okay.
And we're gonna just hit what those 6 lists were. There were 2 6-0s, which was Dave Grant with his Immortal Vader, as he calls it, Empire list, which is basically Vader, a billion stormtroopers with medbots, and Flame Dews. So,
Love it.
yep. And then Matt Haslam with Republic, and that was, I believe this was an Obi-Wan list.
It was. I gotta say, as far as names of Jedi that I thought would be in the top kind of echelon moving into this new edition, this is not the one that I had expected to be at the top of a tournament as quickly. The name Anakin comes to mind.
Well, Anakin was featured in the aforementioned 6 4-0s. So, but yes, Obi-Wan, I'm curious to, I'll have to go back and see if he was on stream at all, because I'm curious to see how he was played, basically. Because yeah, I think the fact that like his defensive tech isn't quite as good in the shorter time scale that we're playing as it used to be, and
I'm actually not as sure I agree with that assessment.
okay.
I actually think that because the time scale is shorter, the defensive tech may be more effective like per use than it would be normally.
Okay.
Because it's just like immediately on A, and B, like saving your units in this edition seems like striking gold a little bit. Like the
Or like a
ability to
lost
do so.
cause, depending on how you look at it.
Maybe, right?
Uh-huh.
I think it depends on how you look at it, but there are very few abilities in the game presently that allow you to strip any number of hits off the top of shots against core units or special forces units, or whatever, and Guardian 3 on a surging to block with the ability to like re-roll the pool that is guardianing is like it seems like a reasonable way to do that. And obviously, I mean, like maybe that's not what he was doing, but I suspect that was the case given the fact that he took some medics and his clone infantry had portable scanners.
Yeah. Interestingly, he does have Saber Throw on Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Saber Throw certainly getting some love with the new cover rules, because you're not just losing 2 hits off the top of that pool every time now.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we'll see more Obi-Wan. I'd love to see it. I love him as a character. Personally,
Yep.
I'm on team Anakin. So 2 of the top 6, again, we're taking a snapshot of the 4-0s here because that's a clean breaking point. Otherwise, if you take all
Five
all
no's,
6
but
rounds,
yeah.
oh, is it 5-0s? Okay.
Yeah.
That's right, because the pair down lost going into the last round.
Yep.
So yeah, sorry, 5-0s, top 6 5-0s. It's not as clean if you just look at the final splits results. So that's what we're going with. But Two of those were Anakin, 501st. So that's 3 Republic, and of the 6, 5 and O's, 1 Empire, and then the remaining 2 lists were both experimental droids, double snail lists. We'll talk more about this next week when we do the Separatist faction, but obviously this is a real good list. This is something locally that also had been a hit. Armor is real tough to kill in this edition, particularly armor that's supported by Exemplar. So yeah, we'll talk about that more next week. But snails, clones, Vader good.
Yeah. Notably, there is a faction markedly missing from everything we're going to talk about, at least in this segment.
Well, hang on. Before we go,
Oh, okay.
I just want to point out that there was a double ATST list too in the top 8.
There was
In that final top
there
8,
was a
yeah.
Tempest Force.
I just want to say there were
it was a triple ATST list, just so we're clear.
Was it
oh, I thought
Sliwa?
no, I thought it was 2
Yeah.
ATSTs and 3 bikes.
It was 2 ATSTs plus Marquand.
Oh,
Yeah,
right,
this
right,
is
yeah.
a Tempest triple ATST
Nice.
list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, there's clearly a problem. I mean, with one of the factions, and I think I think we're going to talk about that today, but I have some serious thoughts on it too.
What faction is that, Jay? What faction is missing from the conversation we just had?
Rebels. And here's I'm gonna just say it up front because I feel I'm gonna burst if I don't get this out, and I'll literally won't listen to anything you guys say for the rest of the cast until I get my point out, which is the following. We see this a lot when there's changes in factions, like a significant change, whether it's like a new unit or whatever. We see people playing a lot of the new hotness and not so much, especially with rebels. And maybe there's something with that, but like because they don't really have a faction identity. But like, I think we see people playing the new hotness and not things that would be known to work into this new system, right? And so I'd like to put an asterisk on this as the fact that we didn't see a lot in the top is because the ones that we saw, Kyle and Mike and I went over it briefly before, were ridiculous lists. And like
oh man.
yeah, if you asked me, do you think I should bring this to a major grand tournament, I would have been like, no.
So
should we
I
put
don't
this in
think that's
context real quick?
fair. I don't think
think
that's
it's
fair
fair.
at
Oh,
all.
let's go, Mike.
Because right now,
Yeah.
nobody, including the 3 of us on this podcast, know what lists we should actually be bringing to tournaments because nobody knows what's actually good right now.
That's not true. Mike, we've talked for 3 or 4 episodes. We know what's good.
Well,
for the most part.
I think there are some things we can
Number
say
one.
is good.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. I guess my
it's
point
not clear
is
to
like
me what Rebels
we don't know what the meta should look like right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and whether or not rebels are in that part of the meta or not, I don't think it's fair to say, hey, because the entire Legion community is in the boat of nobody really knows how the meta shakes out. Like every faction is in that. And notably, I would
you guys
let me finish. Let me finish.
Okay.
I think Republic's entire identity has been completely shaken foundationally to its core. Rebels have potentially changed the least out of the 3 factions as far as like what their units do.
Okay.
Which we'll talk about today. So like I don't know. I understand your premise that like people should be trying to take good units. I just don't know if like I'm looking at these lists and the units aren't bad. The units themselves are great. And if anything, this new edition is supposed to be shining a light and making these heroes with small gun dice pools with Pierce good again. Like that was like maybe not the entire point of the changes to cover, but that was a foundational like bullet point of why they made this change to begin with, right?
Sure. And so I guess my point I would bring up to counter this is when we were just talking about CIS, what was the words that you guys said, and you all seem to be in agreement, is that armor's real good with Exemplar, right? Didn't we just say that?
EXD is very good with Exemplar.
And so, but I think that there's options within the Rebel faction that could mimic, not exactly what EXD is doing, but could mimic close to what it's doing. Snail tanks and buses, very similar.
Buses don't have guns, notably.
Well, I mean, they can now with the points
I mean
adjustment, you can put the gun on it.
They don't have
the
good guns.
the persuader, the persuader, the EXD snail specifically, the guns on that thing are insane. It
Yeah.
might be the best dice pool in the game. Like, I don't. I would have to like actually like check numbers and math on that, but like like raw, the EXD persuader gun pool is hot fire. So
Okay.
I'm not sure that, at least in that comparison, it's fair. I get where you're going with that. I do think the Rebel armor options, though, are like significantly less good than the other factions. The airspeeder. Do we just want to like? Why don't we use this as
Let's
a
launch into it. But
segue?
first, I think we should put this into context because I don't think we actually made this point.
Yeah.
The top finishing Rebel list was number 13.
Yes.
That was the only Rebel list in the top 30.
Yeah.
The next top Rebel list was number 32. And then from there, it was kind of a smattering of Rebels. It's not like nobody took Rebels to this tournament. Plenty of people took Rebels.
There was one Rebel list with a winning record, like period.
That is that's a much more stark way to put it. Yeah.
Like
one Rebel list that did better than 500.
yeah.
Yeah, well, when I guess what I'd like to do is because I think sometimes all three of us can get pretty wild with our hot takes on things. And I guess for me it's hard, and this has been forever, 6 years, right? This has been the last 6 years. It's not just the new Legion changes, but it's always we look at these tournament results and we go, oh, GAR or CIS or Empire is best, and that's proven because this tournament, the top X had that faction, right? And my question always that I've always had for the last 6 years is, okay, but what did, like, there was a time when people were like losing at Empire, and as someone who plays a lot of Empire, I was like, why? I wouldn't bring any of those lists. Why would you even bring that list? You know what I mean? And so I just want to make sure that, especially now that it's a new game and we can start fresh with our hot takes, that we at least take into account that, like, no, Mike, I agree with you. We don't know exactly what the meta and what exactly is good in every unit rank for Rebels, but I think we have an idea of what's good in the game in general right now, and to not see some of that being taken with Rebels when they have it. um yes, air speeders, but you know what I mean, like, to a degree
No.
it's
I agree with your premise
yeah.
that like they're not taking good things, but I actually think that I'm not sure I agree with the premise that they have good things. But let's talk
Okay,
about
sure.
the
Let's talk about the
changes,
changes. Yeah.
because I think that
I would
highlights
like
some
to just
things.
argue for an hour and a half if you
Let's
guys
do it.
would
I'm
want.
I'm
I
in for
mean,
this. I'm in for this.
I don't even want to go through these units. I just want to argue with you, Mike,
Yeah.
for 45 minutes and then call it a night.
All right, Leia Organa, fearless and inventive. She got basically the same treatment that other support characters got, which is that she got Exemplar.
Yes.
Is the
Mhm.
primary change. Her blaster is 3 red without Pierce, but it's also range 3 now instead of range 2.
Yeah, much better, I think.
Yeah.
Just generally, I mean, there are definitely specific situations where like you'd rather have the Pierce, but
Yeah, everything else is basically the same. She still has Take Cover 2. She still is Inspire 2. She still is Nimble. She still is Sharpshooter 2. So the primary change being Exemplar.
I think she's significantly cheaper too, if I
She's
remember.
75. So I think that's actually the same.
Maybe it
It
is.
is. Yep, it's the same.
But Exemplar obviously is a massive upgrade there. So
And
It's a huge upgrade as far as like keeping your rebel troopers alive. Just because like you can spend a dodge token that's on Leia, and then like they get it, and then
and
they
then they
just
get to
like
just keep
keep
it.
triggering it with nimble, right?
Yep.
So that's a pretty big bonus.
Yeah. It's kind of like the Ahsoka 2-pip effect, except you can just do it every turn,
hmm,
where you're printing dodges.
Yeah.
Um, Luke Skywalker, hero of the rebellion. So this is Commander Luke. He actually got, I think, possibly the most changes of any of these units we're about to talk about.
This definitely feels like a rebuild a little bit.
Yeah, he's dirt cheap at 120 points, which is great. Um, his lightsaber dice were made more consistent, but also slightly downgraded in like ceiling. So it's only 5 dice now, but 2 of those are red dice.
I think the
Uh,
Pierce is a
and
bigger
the
deal.
Pierce, yeah, it's only Pierce 1 instead of Pierce 2. So definitely like a worse lightsaber pool. He's still got Surge Crit. His pistol is better. It's 4 dice now instead of 2, but 3 of those dice are black, and it's also only Pierce 1 instead of Pierce 2. So, but I think that's still better because it's 4 dice.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. It's
and
also has the ability to bump it up in long shot. So
yeah, he also has block now instead of deflect, which could be better or worse depending on how you look at it. He can actually get surges in melee by spending dodges, but of course that also means he has to spend a dodge to get surges with ranged attacks. So, yeah, and he has sharpshooter
um
1, which he did
uh,
not have previously.
I I don't think I don't think you can get surge to block against ranged attacks, period.
Is the block only works melee now?
Pretty
Is that
sure. I'm
okay?
pretty sure.
you know where you could look this up is on Legion Quick Guide. It's been updated. So for those of you asking about Legion Quick Guide, that is updated.
I'm gonna look this up while we're discussing this. Yeah, he still has Surge Crit, still has Courage 3 and 6 health, all that stuff. So primarily is the significant cost reduction, and then the slight changes to his offensive profile and the fact that he has block now.
Yeah, I mean 120 points for the 6 command cards that he gives you access to is still like a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah, he
Um,
also has a command slot now,
yes, he does.
which is big,
That's
and
good.
he has a training slot as well. So, but he only has one force slot.
You can slap tenacity on them and really get in there with that lightsaber.
Yeah, yeah, I like it.
He
I don't know.
needed it.
He looks like a pretty solid 120 point hero to me. And that command slot is big because I think vigilance is close to required for at least rebel trooper based rebel builds. We can
Yeah,
talk
and
about some other options, but
I do think that like with the points increase generally, like you can't really take an army that doesn't focus on its core anymore. Like I mean, like you can,
it's hard to fill
but
out the org chart if you do that.
yeah,
Block works, period. It's just when a unit with the block keyword is defending, if it spends
Ooh,
any dodge tokens during the apply dodge and cover step, it gains surge to block.
okay, well there you go.
So,
Cool. I
yep.
haven't actually played a unit with block because I play Republic units.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, I think that's pretty good, especially given that he has so many ways to get dodges. You can give him
Mm.
prepared supplies
Uh,
with that gear slot. You can give him exemplar dodges from Leia or a rebel officer. Um, he's got 3 command cards that give him dodges. So,
Dodge City.
yep. All right, R2D2. I think these are basically the same changes as Republic R2.
yeah,
Mm.
which is to say that R2's hot garbage. Don't take them. Secret Mission is so bad in this new
Yeah.
edition. I tried playing it the other day and I literally couldn't move my R2 because it's just gonna die. Like I don't know. It's I don't know. I don't know how. Maybe there are other missions that we haven't seen yet with other deployments that'll allow
Mm.
you to do this, but stay away.
Yeah. All right, rebel officer gains exemplar.
Yep.
obviously amazing for value that you're getting for 50 points there.
Yeah, I think particularly pretty good if you like pair them with layup, like
Yeah.
because take cover 3, hand out 3 dodge tokens, and then skip them to the exemplar units. You're in a pretty sweet spot.
Yep. All right. Rebel troopers, they gain Agile 1.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great on the first turn.
Yeah, especially if you give them recon intel, because then they can get an extra dodge from that as well.
Yeah. They feel like pretty unkillable on turn 1. After that,
They melt.
no, not so much.
Yeah, so I in the first game Mike and I played of the new edition, I tried Rebels. And yeah, it felt great on turn 1. It felt terrible the rest of the game. I mean, the stuff with white saves just immediately dies when it gets shot.
Well, this is the issue with like dodges. I think the one of the reasons dodges were good in the old edition was that like you were kind of stacking defensive bonuses, right? You're like, I'm taking 2 for cover, and then I'm taking like 1 or 2 off with dodges, right? But now it's like I'm taking like 0 or 1 off for cover, and then we go to dodges, right? And sometimes, yeah, you're gonna have the natty cover roll, and you're gonna be able to like dodge the thing and get it back. But more often than not, there's like 5 coming in at your rebel troopers. You like cover save 1, and then you lose half the unit, and it's
Yeah,
I don't know.
that was certainly my experience with it.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
like, oh, I dodged 1. Okay, I still have to roll 5 saves. Great.
Yeah, the dodges were basically good for keeping your unit leaders on the table because I would just like take 4 guys out of the squad at
Right.
once,
Yeah,
like per
exactly.
shot. Yeah.
Yeah, at the end of the game, I had like 6 single man unit leaders, so I'm fighting behind 1 building. But yeah, it was they'd go out there, they'd take a shot at something, do like a wound, and then they would get shot, and I'd lose 4 guys.
Yeah.
So, and that was when they had dodges. So yeah, I think it's a great change. I don't know how much of a difference this makes with the cover changes, making everything essentially more reliant on its save.
Yeah, I definitely think that separatists are a little bit unique, and we'll talk about that next week. And that like they sort of have the numbers in some of their units to like they've always had like the numbers in the B1 squads to kind of be like, okay, well, we're gonna fail all our saves, but you still have to roll the hits, right?
Yep.
And rebel troopers are just like, yeah, we still just die.
Yeah, we're still the same size as all the other core trooper units.
So I guess my question is then, is there something that we're missing with them? Like if they're really good on turn 1 and they can get into a position, is there like maybe with the Z6 or bringing something and like expanding the trooper unit so that they're like almost not an alpha strike, but close to an alpha strike unit where they come in and can like erase something, and then if they get erased, it's all right because you've done a bunch of damage. Like
So
almost like knowing they're gonna die, you're putting them in a place where they get to shoot first and kill, and then
I'm actually thinking about this after being like a significant amount of games deep. And I'm not going to say the number because people are quoting me elsewhere at this point. They're like,
I mean, it's more than 20.
It is more than 20. Yeah.
it was 20 last week.
Yeah.
It's got to be more than 20 at this point.
So like, but I actually think that we need to kind of rejigger our calculus on how we think about heavy weapons and their place in the game and the units and stuff that we bring them. The first thing I think we need to talk about is that like the 4 black dice in a rebel trooper unit are just as effective for the most part against most units as the 4 black dice in a Z6 unit, even if you're tacking the white dice on.
Right.
For the most part. Like it changes a little bit if you're shooting into something with like a dodge token or armor or something to that effect. But oftentimes that's not the case in this new edition. And so to me, I guess what I'm trying to say here is that I actually think 40 points is like a pretty reasonable place to just spend on a unit that can trigger agile 1, can trigger nimble, and like the black dice in it are the best dice it's throwing, and tacking on a Z6 for what is it, like 20-ish points nowadays?
Yeah.
Um, you're 50% increasing the cost of that unit by 50%, and you're only increasing the likelihood that it's gonna live by 25, right? Um, as far as increasing its health pool goes. And I'm not sure the offensive firepower you're getting out of that deal is like when you could just pay another 40 points for like another rebel trooper unit that
Mm.
has 4 black dice. Um, like obviously the offensive power that's encased like per point in the Z6 is much better, but like I think I would rather pay 40 points for another unit with like slightly worse dice and has the ability to like my opponent has to split fire into another target to kill another unit, right? Like they probably can't kill both units in one shot with split fire unless they're like Bad Batch or something, you know. I don't know. I'm starting to kind of like rethink about how I think about the game generally. I'm running all my arcs with no heavy weapons, which is obviously like a little bit different, but like I'm starting to run clone trooper infantry without heavy weapons because I think that that's actually kind of reasonable. And I think I'm watching people run a lot of separatist trooper units without heavy weapons, and I think rebels are actually maybe the place where this matters the most, and
Mm.
we just haven't caught on to it yet.
All
Yeah.
right.
I mean, previously with cover being a fixed value, the game was kind of built around the concept that pushing like each incremental hit you could push your individual attack pool up by was like more valuable than the last one, right?
Yep.
So like going from 2 to 3 hits was more valuable than going from 1 to 2 hits, and going from 3 to 4 hits was even more valuable than going from 2 to 3 hits. Whereas now with cover just being a flat dice roll every time, it's really just more about how many dice you can just kind of cram across your entire army in aggregate rather than making individual pools, trying to clear that hurdle. It's not, previously it was like a curve with ever increasing slope where it would be worth the points to like get your hits up for each individual pool, but now it's just kind of it's just kind of a line that goes, it's actually really more of a flat line.
Yeah.
um where like you just want to think about how many dice you're buying, and that's it. And if you can buy more dice by getting another unit instead of beefing up your individual attack pool, then that's going to just be better. um so yeah,
Mm.
I think you're onto something there, right? Like I guess it would be 2Z6s would be the cost of another rebel trooper unit, but the rebel trooper unit itself is twice as many wounds, and
Yes.
really not, like it's definitely less offense, but it's not half as much.
Right,
Right.
exactly, right. Like I think a Z6 is roughly worth
It's
uh
24 dice facings for 2d6s, and
yeah,
one rebel trooper unit is 16 dice facings.
yeah.
So,
So it's like two-thirds as good,
it's
I
2/3
guess.
as good offensively, but twice as much health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think uh, you know, at the end of the day, like you're also like
You're also getting a second
defensively,
scoring unit
you're getting a second scoring unit. You're triggering agile on that unit every time it
twice.
activates.
Yeah.
So like you're also like you're doubling the number of dodges you have probably, and that they have to shoot into. So I don't know. I played like Rebels once. I'm not gonna say that like I like know everything that's going on here, but this is definitely how I'm feeling specifically about Rebel Troopers right now,
Mm.
because they do just like instantly melt more than
Yeah.
any other core unit in the game, I think.
Yeah. Geos, I think you could put in that same category, but they're also defensively basically the same. So, and
Yeah.
Geos have a lot more mobility, so they can stay out of the line of fire a little more easily.
Also, like if you double a Geo squad, it's actually kind of insane
They
offensively.
have a much better offensive profile on a per unit basis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of, should we talk about fleet troopers?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it.
What if we said no, Kyle? What if we were like, no?
Then I would skip them.
Let's just stop here.
I'm a
We
man of
did
the
it.
people. All right. All right. The end. So this was the no. Yeah, fleet troopers, they gained charge,
Mm.
So that's interesting. And their pistols also work in melee. Otherwise, there's still the same cost, and they're still made of peanut brittle.
Yeah, their shotgun also works in melee,
Yes,
which
relevant.
is like a very relevant piece to this puzzle.
Yeah,
So they do get Pierce in melee.
that's a pretty actually like legitimately decent melee pool for what, like 60 points.
Yeah, makes
It's
Wookiees look sad.
it does. I mean, it's the BX droid sniper plus the rest of the unit pool, but for like half the cost, basically. Right?
Yes,
Eight
definitely
white,
attached
two
to
red with Pierce.
a unit that is defensively pretty poor.
Right.
But you know, these guys have all the same issues that Rebel troopers have, except that like when you deliver them to a target, they do damage.
Yeah.
Um,
And this is a situation where I would consider the heavy for the reasons we just talked about, because Pierce is actually a big deal, and the dice on it are also good. So
yeah, particularly with, obviously we talked about the MKGT. Basically, the top six was effectively all red saves. I'm
yeah,
gonna say all red saves. I know EXD isn't strictly red saves, but the good units in it that aren't armor vehicles are red saves. So
yeah,
um,
B2 than BX droids.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Also, all of those things very close range, generally.
Yeah.
Again,
Range 2 is not the drawback it used to be.
no. Speaking of ranges, should we talk about the FD laser cannon team?
No.
Why? Just stop asking the question,
All
Kyle.
right, all right. I'll just say we're moving on. Moving on. All right, the FD laser cannon. Since you don't want to talk about it, we're going to move on to Rebel veterans. Rebel veterans. Uh, they still have coordinated placement trooper. They have low profile, which is new,
Yep.
and they have prepared position, which is a new rule that basically means that they start deployed, unlike everything
Yep.
else, or they can
So
start deployed.
can start deployed. That was
Yeah,
people in the comments last episode got at us real hot. They're like, you don't have to start on the board. And
yeah,
that is true.
and they get a free
Though
dodge too when they deploy,
Yeah,
right?
Mike, you
If they
idiot.
start on the board,
God, right?
How dare you?
How
they're also
dare I?
speed one.
They're speed one, which means that like if you don't start with them on the board, they're pretty not great.
I think you basically, if you're taking veterans and shores because they
Mm,
got similar treatment, I think you kind of have to have like an army wide plan for them to just start on the board.
Yeah.
yeah.
So otherwise, they're not going to score.
Yeah.
Um, which means I think if you're taking veterans or shores, I think you basically have to be taking like maximum veterans and maximum MK2s. And then just start with basically be like, I'm gonna just have my whole army start on the table.
Yeah.
And we're gonna play old deployment rules. For me anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we kind of mentioned this last week when we were talking about shore troopers, where like it's interesting the thought of an army that everyone like kind of almost everyone kind of has the prepared positions where you're just going full throttle and like it's just like, yeah, this is who I am. Good luck to you, So it's super interesting. And I wondered like if there's some play there with that,
And
especially with the unit we skipped over.
yeah.
Okay. So
Well, before we skip to the FT,
yeah,
I do want to talk about like low profile. It's the same. It says something very different now, but it
it's the same.
still does the same thing.
Yeah.
A, but B, I do think low profile plus dodge token, like the prepared position dodge token, is like a significantly different story in my mind. In comparison to most units with prepared positions,
Yeah.
because cover plus low profile plus a dodge token, you're starting to like actually stack the defensive tech at that point.
Right.
And I feel a little bit better about that.
Mm.
So I did want to just mention that really quick
Yeah.
because
No, I think that's pretty relevant. I think low profile stock has gone up in relative terms.
yeah.
Just because it's a guaranteed block for cover.
Yeah.
So which is just not a thing anymore. But yeah, shaving that one hit off the top just automatically is great. All right. 1.4 FD laser cannon team. So I think the primary change here is just that they got the new prepared position rule.
Mm-hmm.
They still can't move. I think
Yeah.
everything else is actually the same.
I think the
The
blaster
blaster
pistols are
pistols
a little
got a
better.
little better. Yeah. But other than that, yeah, it's the same. I don't know. I guess I
The
struggle to spend 65 points on a unit that almost certainly will not score.
um
Um,
that's actually interesting because I think several of the objectives you can actually technically, I'm not sure you want to, but you can technically, I think, start it in a position that it is scoring on many of the or at least contesting to secure several of the objectives.
I mean, certainly the ones that are placed like in or near your territory,
Yeah.
but those ones usually are like not worth anything to you,
Right, but
right?
generally on those objectives, your opponent is required to secure them, in which case the FD cannon would count as like a neutralizing force, and that like it would
Yeah,
require them
it's
to
a unit.
dedicate additional units to score that point,
Mm.
right?
Sure.
Um,
Unless you're playing the one where with the comms thing where you just need to contest it.
yeah, yeah,
But
I
yeah.
don't like that mission.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely my least favorite mission by a lot.
It's a very bizarre.
Yeah.
I think that one plays more differently than the others
Yes.
in a bad way.
Yeah.
Um
But that's a conversation for another time.
yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about rebels now, Mike.
Talking
How
All
about
dare
right.
you?
Should we talk about the commandos?
Yeah, Kyle,
Technically
we
the
should.
only actual change unit card in here is the strike team, which got detachment rebel commandos. Um I think it's relevant that
Well,
The sniper is absurdly priced, is what he was gonna say.
but
uh,
instead he's just going to be frozen for all of time.
yeah. I think the main thing to talk about with commandos of all sorts is just that all the sniper rifles went up by 10 points. Did you guys
I,
talk about this with the Empire thing?
yes, we also talked about it as you cut out, and I was like, what he was gonna say there is
Oh
that the
yeah, okay.
sniper rifles are way too expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, black white is still like a terrible dice pool.
Yeah.
Um, I mean,
Yeah.
It is a
like yeah, it definitely feels better when you get like one hit, but also this game isn't really about like chipping one hit off anymore.
it's
Mm.
also not about range 5 anymore.
Right.
Like, the things that made the snipers good in the old edition, like I look at all these sniper rifle points, like points increases, and I just want to like go to whoever changed the points and be like, who hurt you, who did this to
Yeah.
Well,
you?
it's almost like,
When you touch the sniper rifle
Yeah.
where it hurt you, yeah.
it's like, it feels like to me, there's some like changes that they made where you were like, hey, if we were still playing the old game, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But then they were like, they made them and then changed the format, and then we're like, then go back, and you're like, well, okay, like,
But yeah,
well,
range 5 poke damage actually doesn't really matter that much
yeah,
anymore. So
so you did it. So
yeah.
wouldn't you want to go down on those so that people would use them? But
Or at
yeah,
least
it's
keep
weird.
them the same. I get not
Yeah,
going down on them because of the cover changes, but I think the way scoring works and the pace of the game and the fact that it's compressed, the relevant part of the game is compressed to just a few turns, all kind of works even further back in the other
yeah.
direction against sniper rifles.
How much is the
Well,
rebel sniper now, out of curiosity?
Uh, it's,
great question.
it's like 40 points. Let me actually look
Like
at how much
the
it
arc
is.
sniper rifles, I think
The arc is
41,
37.
37. That's what it
Yeah.
was. I've just been
You can tell which faction I've been building this one more
Yeah.
recently.
it's the rebel sniper rifle is 38 points.
Okay, I was close.
Um, and like the base cost of a rebel commando squad is 48 points for 4 guys.
Mm,
Like,
yeah. I mean, a strike team for 2 men with the the sniper rifle is 58 points. 58 points for 2 models.
Yeah, I just
That's
uh,
not good.
yeah. I mean, it's like not a huge deal because the snipers are like kind of probably wouldn't even be that good anyways. I'm not even sure you want to take them, but um, yeah, it's just weird.
I think you could justify taking commandos naked at 48, actually.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the SAB options are like also like pretty reasonable, I think, in comparison. I don't know what they're coming in at.
It's 20, so that's a 68 point unit.
Yeah. That's like that's reasonable, you know.
My hesitation there is now it's basically a melee weapon, and unlike other like scouts and BX commandos both have access to extremely good short range dice pools on their normal models, whereas
Yeah,
commandos don't. Like it's just a black dice.
that's very
You're
fair.
supporting that pool with. So even the it's a rainbow basically. Blast critical 2, impact 3. You don't care about the blast as much because they already have sharpshooter. So all you're doing is wiping their t-shirt saves. Critical 2, you don't really care as much about because they already surge hit. And then impact 3, I guess that's interesting that you could also just take impact grenades.
But I mean,
I guess you could take impact grenades and this thing and have like an impact 7 pool.
if you look at the Rebel Commandos, it's just like let's accept the premise earlier that I was talking about that like naked Rebel troopers are like the way you want to go. Like if you
Yeah.
assume that like Scout 1 already costs you 5 points, so 8 points for Scout 2 is not like super unreasonable. You're also getting sharpshooter plus low profile
And surge hit.
plus surge hit, So like I don't know. If you just kind of like look at the Rebel Commandos as like an upgraded Rebel Trooper without a heavy weapon, I think that's kind of fine. And all of a sudden, you can take like 10 Rebel Trooper units for like 400 points if you just take a bunch of naked squads, right? Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's actually pretty reasonable. You don't even really have to give them any upgrades.
yeah, just like and go all in on the like we're just like a numerous amount of activation type situations and
Let's
Hmm.
see, out of curiosity, how much. And we're not going to talk about sleeper cell yet because they're not out. I think that they get hard replaced by sleeper cell on that same slot as soon
I
as
think
sleeper
sleeper
cell comes
cell
out.
is 70
Sleeper cell
points.
70.
And their range 2 dice pool is like pretty insane in
It's twice as good.
comparison.
It's literally twice as good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, I think it's better than twice as good, isn't it? Aren't they rolling like two black per
it's
dude?
it's 2 black.
And there's 6 of them though.
Yeah, that's true.
So
So yeah, it's better than twice as good. It's
yeah.
twice as good on a per model basis, but there's 50% more models.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah. Let's see. Just for kicks. 6 naked trouble rebel trooper units and 3 commandos is 9 activations, and you're only at 384 points, which means you have another 616 points to spend on whatever else you want.
Yeah.
That's interesting, actually, I think.
Yeah, I'm not super convinced activation padding is like with how like the pass mechanics and stuff work
Yeah.
now. I'm not sure that that's like a strategy you should pursue on its like itself, but I do think that maybe is how rebels want to start operating.
I think it's I think it's more that you're dice padding than that you're activation padding. You're just taking as many wounds and dice as you can manage to do with the points that you have available.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
ATRT armor
What they
2.
said, math.
We've been told we don't know how to math, Jay. I'm sorry.
Well, then I'm way up the creek without a paddle because I don't know how to math at all.
All right. So the ATRT got um, defensive surge, which
Yep.
is neat. Its armor, of course, got reduced from full armor to armor 2.
Thankfully.
It's still really cheap. I don't know. I actually think the ATRT laser is kind of interesting.
I think the ATRT laser is probably the best weapon because it's just like the
Yeah.
most efficient weapon. But I think the biggest thing here on the ATRT, and this goes for the Republic ATRT too, because it is similarly pretty cheap. Has nothing to do with the text on the card. It's that you can take like either the ATRTs for like 50, or I think the Republic one's a little bit more expensive. They score points now. They have
Yeah.
scout. These are just kind of like the way that I'm thinking about the ATRTs is these are trooper units that actually have cover from the old rules.
Yeah, armor 2 equals cover 2, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And like when you think about it like that, all of a sudden you're like, interesting. They're also mobile line of sight blockers still.
Yeah.
So like they not only are getting the cover rules, but they're shielding the rest of your army. So I don't know if they're good, but I do think the fact that they actually like have some defensive shenanigans going on and they cost the same is like, a rebel trooper unit or something, I think is interesting.
Here, let's add some flamethrower ATRTs onto our 384 point list here.
Okay.
We're up to 579 and 12 activations.
Okay.
Just build a list as we go. I'm gonna add some commanders while you guys move on to the next unit here.
Okay. Well, the next unit, I'm very okay. Next unit is the T-47 airspeeder.
What were you gonna say? I'm very what, Mike?
I'm gonna say it in a second.
Okay.
I wanted to talk about the changes first.
You say it now.
So I think the main change to the T-47 airspeeder is that it went from armor to armor 3, and I don't think its points cost changed.
Yep. Womp womp.
Yeah,
which is
that's yeah. Otherwise, everything else is basically the same.
Yeah, I actually think nothing is different. So that's a thing that happened. Airspeeders were already like kind of
it went down 5
cannony.
points.
Sorry,
5
points.
Yeah.
But armor 3 is like pretty easy to get over the top of still, and yeah, I don't know. These things are just gonna get shredded. I don't know. I would never pay 125 points for this unit ever.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Especially when you can get a tricked out land speeder for what, like under 100 points.
For another 15 points, you can get Rebel Bad Batch.
Yes, also
just for comparison points.
Here, I'm gonna trick out a land speeder here.
I mean, I guess the T-47, right, is still really good against armor. If you can delay in a way that, but now it's also being able to be shot by other things a little bit more easily. So like, it was always tricky as someone who played double air speeder for a while, like. Shocker. I know everybody's TJ playing double.
I'll never
heavy.
forget the first time I met Jay Shalansky. He was playing double airspeeder, and I gave him the old tutorial on how to use his uplinks properly.
Let's be clear. That was back when they were bad.
Yes,
like,
yes, it was. It was like bad. The first packs ever.
Yeah. That's right. We'd only been playing for like what, month or 2 months at that time. Yeah. That's right. We did meet there. And but yeah, so they've always been tricky, even when they were really good. Well, really good is a stretch, but even when they were good towards the end there, they've always been tricky. But now the fact that they're armor 3, it means that a lot more things can get hits through, and they really do just start to melt because of those white saves. It's unfortunate, and I'm not sure their place in this new game. They're a deterrent for armor, but man, you got to be real careful, and it's hard to be careful now.
Yeah.
I mean, the trend here, similarly, I mean, I think there's been a similar trend with the long range sniper rifles, and there's a similar trend with things that have the speeder keyword, with maybe the exception of the next unit we're going to talk about.
Yep.
In that they are all very pricey, presumably because of their high mobility, in relation to being able to like contest the new objectives, I assume, because since everything's area controlled, and like the speeder bikes and like T4 things with speeder have a third move that allows them to like, go steal a back point.
Yeah.
But there really aren't back points anymore.
It
I mean, there
doesn't feel
sort of
that
are,
way,
but
no.
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
kind of just all center points, and some of the center points are closer to your opponent's deployment than yours.
Yeah. And when it's just the deployments, it's just so much harder to like get, because with speeders before bikes or the air speeders, you could play a little game where you would go over to the corner and do some circles for a while everyone's kind of killing themselves, and then swoop in and eat up some activations, or take a key position or something like that. But like, just the way everything's set up now, that is so much more difficult to do. And like, just, I don't know, it's just a lot more difficult.
Time in your strike so
Yeah.
that you are surgical and kind of like hit and run without actually getting hit back. It's for way
It's a lot
tougher.
harder.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it used
It
to be
was, and it was
like the
never
donut
easy.
the donut strike thing,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
with speeders, but there's a uh since everything is more dangerous now, like usually often a goal with that would be like, all right, I'm only going to get shot once. And
Yes.
that'll be fine. Now getting shot once is like, all right, I guess they die. But also, you don't really have time to do that, right?
I think that's the big
Um
thing.
Yeah.
because that would take, setting up a run like that took some preparation and positioning, and you just don't have time to do that anymore.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
getting charging in there like guns blazing style with speeders was never a good idea.
Never,
Even in the
never
old
has
edition.
been, never will be.
Still isn't, but like
Yeah.
if you want to get them involved enough, then that's what you're doing now, and that's just not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's never been good with them. So, all
Yeah.
right, land speeder.
Next.
Yeah. Let's talk about that land speeder, Kyle.
Armor 2, Arsenal 3, cover 1, speeder 1. Is that a downgrade for the armor, or has that always been armor 2? Because I'm struggling to see what's actually different here other than the cost.
I will tell you. 1 second.
Okay.
I think it may have had armor 3, maybe, but
Yeah, armor 2. No, you're right.
yeah,
Yeah,
no, I think it's
armor
pretty
2.
pretty samey.
And it was 75 originally 75 points. What the heck
Yeah,
is
it's come down a lot. Anyway,
60, so it went down 5 more points.
okay. The relevant thing here is you can make a speeder with the A300 rifle gunner, which is the 2 white dice at range 3, the Mark II medium blaster, and the RPS 6 rocket gunner. All of those things for 98 points. That is what is that? 6, 8,
It should be in the
9, 9
9
dice
to
pool
10. Yeah.
for 98 points on a speeder unit.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. The
I
surges hit. They're pretty good dice too.
mean, it's almost as fast as the air speeder. The dice pool is way better.
Yep.
He still has cover.
Yeah.
You can take the whatchamacallit on it.
The gonk.
No, the unstable astromech and shoot twice a turn.
Oh yeah.
Which in the new edition actually seems like maybe really good. I mean, I think it was probably decent in the old edition, but being able to just like come onto the board and like fire twice with your land speeders immediately seems pretty redonkulous.
Would you say it's rigonkulous?
Rigonkulous. Yeah, let's go with that. Well done. Well
Got
done,
him.
Kyle.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you got to give up the one of your gunner slots for that, probably the rifle gunner. But they also have just normally 2 dice at range 2. That's white, so you're really only losing like 1 range band by doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just this is like one of those cases where like the points for a kitted out land speeder and the points for an air speeder, you kind of look at them and you're like, well, one's very clearly better than the other. So that's the one I'm gonna take.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 25 more points for an air speeder that's basically marginally more durable, but has 3 fewer dice.
Yeah. Wah, wah. Wah,
Anyway,
wah.
I just built a list.
All right.
It is Luke, Commander Luke, with burst of speed and tenacity. Han, naked. 6 rebel troopers, also naked. 3 rebel commandos, also naked. 3 HRTs with a laser cannon, and then 2 of those land speeders, and it is 996 points, 16 activations. I don't know. I'm not saying it's something, but it's not nothing.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
I think
certainly not nothing.
it definitely seems like something you could, uh, the order control in that list is hot garbage.
Yes,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
But
yeah.
you worry about controlling Han and Luke, and everything else is just like, all right,
good
you
luck.
know, yeah,
Godspeed. But you throw like reckless diversion on some commandos, right? They've got low profile
yeah.
and they're only 48 points. So here, waste my 48-point activation instead of my army, please. And you move on with your life, right?
You could
Yeah,
even throw some Ewoks or something in there if you really want to.
we
Yeah.
really wanted to. All right. A5. Let's move it along, Kyle. No more list
Okay,
building.
sorry,
I actually
A5.
think we're going pretty fast here,
We are, yeah,
frankly.
Not fast
yeah.
enough for Jay.
A5, armor 5 is the primary change here.
Yeah, baby.
No, 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 no. I'm
No?
sorry.
Oh, and then
I'm
and
sorry.
that you can only I mean, there are changes to the transport rules and changes to like reposition, sorry, not reposition, displacement and all that stuff that are extremely critical to how this thing functions. Did you guys talk about that last week at
Yes.
all with
We
Empire?
did. I just like armor 5 is like for the most part still armor.
It's still basically full armor.
Yeah, it's like
'Cause
pretty close.
yeah.
Um,
I mean,
so
that's the only actual thing that changed on the unicard, as far as I can
yes,
tell.
yeah.
So it's basically the same. It's much more affected by the displacement rule changes and the fact that it can't transport characters and stuff anymore.
Or like hide things in it at all. Realistically, like the reason the AA5 was good before is because you could put a unit inside it
Yeah. Although
and
now
like
you can put stuff behind it, walk through it to do a peekaboo, and then walk back behind it.
you
Yeah.
definitely can do that. Although is there anything other than Han in Rebels that actually has the steady keyword?
No, I don't think so.
No, but you got the fleets with charge, so you could potentially like block them out and then charge in.
Do like a
Yeah.
little skid, do like a little skid turn
Yeah,
with the fleets behind it, and then charge through it with the fleets.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of cute, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's good, but it's interesting.
All right.
Do we want to talk? I don't think there's a bunch of Bright Tree Village changes in here too, but I don't think I don't know those cards well enough to know what if anything has actually changed here.
I mean, the ATST Chewie got the same changes as basically the Empire ATST. The primary difference of which was armor 5 instead of full armor.
Yeah.
The Ewoks just got what appears to be like a new mercenary keyword, which
Okay.
previously it was not a keyword, but which is interesting because the Raider AA5 does not have the same keyword.
Right.
So but otherwise they're basically the same as far as I can tell. I don't see an actual difference with the skirmishers and the slingers.
I think the mercenary keyword thing is just like you can take this mercenary in this faction, and the AA5 you can't.
You can't because it's Shadow Collective only.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they took the little pips off of the top corner of what the mercs, so make them a little more obvious
Yeah.
I see.
in the
I guess we
text.
should expect changes to the bounty hunters and stuff then, if that's the
And like
case.
pikes and black
Yeah,
sod
yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I think a lot of, and they said this during the thing, a lot of the big changes to some of the cards were just from a usability standpoint. It's weird the cards that they chose to and not to do that too, but hey, what else?
So here's a question, just generically, that I haven't really thought about until just a second. With the new cover rules and all of that, are Ewok skirmishers just like the best rebel core unit because they have low profile?
Interesting.
Possibly. I mean, it's also kind of going back to they have the B1 defensive ability, which is just we have more wounds.
Numbers, yeah.
Yeah.
And melee is more attainable now than it was. Um, I don't know. I think it's possible. I could definitely see running like a Bright list with Han and a bunch of skirmishers and slingers. I mean,
Well, I think also like just like Wicket plus a couple skirmishers isn't terrible either, just in like a regular rebel list.
yeah,
Because scouting party is like way better. I mean, scouting party was always good, obviously,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
scouting party now seems significantly better.
well, and they have what is effectively, is it still 3 points for forest
The
dwellers?
the char is that the dodge card?
The dodge plus scout.
Oh, sure, sure,
Um,
sure. I don't think that changed, but it may have.
it is
It's
still 3 points. So they effectively have a 3 point recon intel that also gives them a dodge, where recon intel went up to 5 points. So
hash, hashtag oversight.
I mean, maybe it's a training upgrade, which is like a slightly more in demand slot than gear,
Yeah.
but it also kind of replaces the gear slot on skirmishers, right? So, yeah, I definitely think it's interesting. I do think, I mean, certainly if you just run a couple of them as your like naked units in a normal rebel list, I think that's very defensible. I think if you're running Bright Tree Village, you start running out of things to spend points on,
Yeah, that's definitely
unless
the
you're,
issue I've been running into with that. Unless you're taking sniper rifles because they're
yeah,
insanely costed.
right.
But
But yeah, like I mean, if you're doing a Bright Tree list, take your whatever 6 naked skirmishers. You're taking Han. Uh, you're taking slingers. Here, I'm sorry, I'm getting rid of all the vehicles here. Um, take
look
your
out,
three
Jay. He's
slingers
building
with
a list
force
again.
dwellers.
What did I
Sorry,
say?
Jay.
What did I say?
I was, you know what? I was inspired, Jay, to do this list based on your dislike of me live building a list on the cast.
Get him. Get
For
him.
all of you out there that thinks I tell Mike and Kyle what to do, here is proof of that.
Okay. I mean, you take Han, Leia, Logray, 3PO, 6 skirmishers, 3 slingers. You're only up to 632 points. It's 13 activations. You still have 370 points that you got to figure out what to spend on. I
You
guess you
kind of
could
have to
take.
take the
I
ATST,
think
I
you have
think.
to take ATST Chewie, but then you still have 200 points left, and you've basically maxed out the org chart.
I mean, I also think ATST Chewie is a lot better in this version of the game.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, so there's
Yeah, I
that
mean,
too.
just it's just, I mean, from my point of view, like just all vehicles being able to score now is so good.
Yeah, and
Well,
armor being so much more difficult to take out because you just don't
Yeah,
have time.
yeah.
I was actually talking from a being a mobile line of sight blocker that can't be
Oh,
shot,
Mm.
like period, end of story, full stop.
Oh, with
Like
incognito, yeah.
no, yeah.
like is
There's
actually
a lot of
like
good reasons, it turns out.
yeah,
Yeah.
like that seems like a pretty relevant ability in a format where things just are getting deleted on turn one.
Yeah. I mean, you can
So
only take one, and it's not super huge, so you probably can get around it with some line of sight stuff, but
yeah, I mean, if you like park it next to a building or like
yeah,
connect the line of sight blockers, like all of a
right.
sudden you're probably looking pretty good. I don't know. It seems a lot better.
Yeah.
And you're right, you do kind of have to take it because you have nothing else to spend points on once you fill out the org chart.
Yeah, yeah. I guess I mean you could just double all your Ewok squads,
Mm.
Yeah, just have a bunch of 10, 11, 12 man Ewok squads.
but similarly to Geonosians, I'm not buying another 6 Ewok boxes. I
No.
only bought 2 Ewok boxes,
Yeah.
so but I'm certainly not buying another 6 Ewok boxes. Uh,
Nope.
that's a lot of Ewoks.
That's a lot of Ewoks. It's a lot of Ewoks to paint.
Well,
Yeah,
I got to imagine
I could barely
Ewoks are
make it through
pretty
my first
easy.
set.
Ewoks, you can just like dry brush real quick and
They
you're
are
kind of
easier to
fine,
paint.
right?
They have
Yeah,
you can kind of give them the B1 treatment a little bit,
Yeah, you
but
can, but that's not fun.
yeah,
sure.
you still got to paint all their like tactical logs and stuff.
Yeah.
Are there any command cards in here that we need to talk about? It looks like reckless diversion. Is this just a
It's
templating
just
change?
it's an update for backup to
Ah,
clarify that you lose backup when you use it,
Yeah.
you
which
lose
makes
the
sense.
ability to gain like
Correct. Yeah.
yeah, okay. And hold at any cost.
It's no longer like unlimited standbys. You have to actually get an order from the card to get the standby, and the standbys are not. Interestingly, the standbys are no longer limited to emplacement troopers. It's just 3 units, and each unit issued an order gets a name and a standby.
So notably, like if you have battle med Luke, you can give him a standby.
Yes,
Nice, nice.
it is interesting. Yeah, and you can
Um,
give just, I mean, you can give like beefy rebel veterans units standbys, which is certainly better than giving it to an MK2 or something like that. So
yeah. Looks like
rebel
Ahsoka's
only is the
card.
only
Oh, it's
chance
the
to give her
rebel only
cards.
thing.
Yeah,
Right. Because we're getting that Republic
yeah,
Ahsoka.
finally.
Well, two, right?
Yeah, I think those are the only changes to command cards.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well,
So, I mean, did we talk about why the problem of rebels writ large here enough? Do we think?
So my experience with playing them, I think, is that I think I was trying too hard to play old style rebels, and as a result, I was, as you noted, wasting a lot of points on things like heavy weapons. And I think rebels more than the other factions need to be super conscious of the fact that their units, even with like dodge spam, are just immediately die when they get shot. Um, so I think the short answer is stuff is even more fragile now, and they're a faction that is kind of based on being fragile.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the solution to that is, but I think rebel players probably have to adjust their list building to factor in the reality that your stuff is just going to die.
well,
Yeah.
and play style too, right? Like
Yeah.
because okay, and back to like the top of what we were talking about, and the more we've been talking about and I've been thinking about it, like I wonder, and I don't know, you'd have to get this on the board and practice it, but like they seem to me to be more of a like highly aggressive, almost like suicide bomber type scenario where you're like, I'm just gonna get them like, especially with like prepare positions and stuff like that. Like, I'm just gonna get them up there. They're gonna kill stuff, and hopefully, I have enough things on the back end to kind of survive and kill enough of my opponent's stuff, um, to then move in with what I have left, which is hopefully heroes, right? I mean, I think it's very like kind of how rebels are in the media stuff in the movies and TV shows, right? Like all the no name t-shirt guys die, and then Luke and Leia and Han go and do all the heroic stuff, right? And I think maybe there's something to that where you're letting all your t-shirts go and eat up a bunch of the shots to then throw in a blender Luke or Ahsoka or somebody or Han or Leia, now that they can shoot pretty well as well with the new cover stuff. And then you let your heroes kind of clean up and take the objectives, maybe. Maybe. I don't know.
Han is
Yeah.
definitely very good in the new
Han's
edition.
excellent. Yeah.
He might be the best rebel unit in the new edition, or maybe the most improved. I mean, his pistol is much better now. Change of plans has gained significantly in value now that
His
the
command cards are way better. They were already
yeah.
Yeah, they're
very excellent, but now they're just like, if you have any like sorry about the mess, also that stocks in that, as long as you can like see something that isn't Han or up like something, I
Yeah.
think it's still very good. Um yeah, for sure. I definitely think that like a large part of this is that even though a lot of the other factions changed, like in Republic and yeah, Separatist slash EXD, because that seems to be what Separatist still is. Like that's still like the things that are good are still good there. And I think like in Rebels, I very much think that their best non-hero trooper unit now is Pathfinders, frankly. Um,
Yeah, that's fair.
Infiltrate's much better. Like they're super cheap. They don't tap. Like they throw a ton of dice.
Yep.
Um, you got the ability to like shoot and move back because they have infiltrate. I think that there's a lot going on there, and the way Rebel players are going to have to build their lists
Yeah.
is going to be pretty substantially different moving forward.
Yeah, I
It's
would.
in
Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
no,
Kyle.
please.
I think, and we still gotta go through Separatists, but like based on what we've gone through so far and what I've seen, I think the other, though you have to change your style because it is a new game. I think inherently the other three that we've gone over or two that we've gone over so far with CIS coming up, they've kind of stayed similar, right? Like the things that were good are still kind of good, and plus or minus one or two here or there, but still good are good. And I wonder with Rebels that maybe they're the faction that completely. I think we've said it multiple times in different ways over this cast that they're the faction that's got to completely change their ways in order to survive in this new world. And I think they have possibilities. It's just, and back to my rant at the beginning of the podcast is, I think those lists that we saw, like, I don't know, even understanding that we don't know the meta, that none of us really know what's good yet, and we're still working on this as we go. But I definitely looked at those two and went, well, those aren't good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it didn't even like, it wasn't
I,
as much
I
of a question for me.
I think the Echo base list is actually pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
interesting is not the same word as good though. Like interesting is interesting, right? I think there's some
I think
yeah,
other things.
the Echo base list is interesting, but it includes four extremely what I would consider to be overpriced units and the Tauntauns and T-47 air speeders.
yeah,
Like they're just like
Yeah.
that is over 400 points in four units that are probably somewhere in the 10 to 20 points too expensive per unit range. I would guess. Um, maybe I'll change my opinion on that as we go along, but
Well,
yeah.
I don't
yeah. Okay, so but those were like okay, so when you say this is where I struggle and maybe I'm not understanding where you guys are coming from. But when you guys say something's interesting and then you take out the core component of that list, then to me then that's no longer good. But if we're going to say Echo Base is interesting because of prepared positions and so you go with the FD turrets and then all the other stuff in Luke and Leia versus getting the air speeders and okay, now that's a different list and now I can see more of a kind of an identity across that list. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely think if you like took the tons and the air speeders out and just like, I mean, this list is still playing a little bit by the old rules and that it's only got six core units across it, but it could have 12, right? Um,
Yeah, I just built another list while you guys were talking. Um, Luke with burst tenacity, prepared supplies. Han naked, but you'd want to add stuff to him. Six veterans with the CM93 and six Mark II medium blasters. That's 14 activations. That's still only 913 points. So you got some points left over to get like, I don't know, an FD, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I think what I mean when I say something like that is interesting, Jay, is you can look at the bones of the list and like the concept can be interesting, but maybe it's just not fully optimized. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and maybe I'm looking at it differently because like when I'm putting in two air speeders and like two tons, that is the identity of the list, right? Because you have to build, even in today's world of Legion, you have to build around those are your core components of those lists, and you're building to the strength of those pieces. Whereas some of these lists just feel like they just threw them in because they could, because there's more points now, and that's not really the same as building around an identity. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think Rebels have to adapt. It's interesting. I think their previous faction identity or things that they were good at, one of those things was like long range pierce spam.
Yep.
And ironically, I think that even though in theory with the new cover rules that strategy should be better now, I think it's actually worse for the reasons we talked about related to the sniper rifle
Hmm.
changes. So I think that that sort of like strength of them has just kind of been watered down in usefulness. And you know, the things like the additional dodge token access that they're getting through Agile and Exemplar and stuff, I think that kind of just evens out with just the increased lethality of the game overall. So
Yeah, like if they didn't have that, they would just be dead in the water
Yeah.
immediately.
Right. Right.
Like
right,
Right.
you would have no prayer
Yeah.
at all if you
right.
didn't
You
have
wouldn't
that
have your
token.
unit leaders wouldn't be left alive. They would just the whole unit would be gone.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how Rebel players kind of innovate a little bit, but you definitely can't just do what you were doing before and hope to succeed. And I know that sort of goes for all factions, but you know, we've already seen the other factions either do something that's similar enough to what they were doing before and succeed with that, or find something already in the new game that actually works well. Right? Like clones have totally changed how they play, but clone players have also totally changed how they run their clones and have done so with great success. Um, you know, same with EXD, right? Like I know that there were some EXD players previously taking snails, but now you're taking two. You know, you're leaning much more on those than you were on the BX commandos. That's a very different way for EXD to run, and it's working great.
Yeah.
So,
it helps
yeah,
when you got two resources of exemplar in it.
yes, it does. Uh, but yeah, I'll be curious to see how Rebel players adapt. You know, I'm not saying I don't think that MKGT is evidence that Rebel players aren't trying things. I think they totally are. I think just at least so far the things that they're trying, you know, everybody's throwing crap at the wall, right?
Yeah, it
It's
just
just
seems
Yeah.
like the
that some of the Rebel crap isn't sticking. Well, everybody else has been finding crap that sticks to the wall. So, um,
Yeah. And I guess that's, what I'm trying to say here is trying to like put, saying an entire faction isn't great because someone hasn't picked up on, but it's always been like this from the beginning that someone will come along all of a sudden with some sort of mix of rebels and start spanking people, and you'd be like, oh, right. Of course that's good. You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, I didn't even think of that.
well,
So,
I do think like to some extent, while I agree with you in that regard, um, there are like some expected like averages that should play out, and obviously one tournament is not like nearly enough, but this is really
yeah.
the only data we have.
Yeah.
Um, and this data says that if this is the only sample size we have, it says the rebels are starting behind.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and it's just interesting, right? Because I think when you look at a tournament like this too, and you look at the top eight, and we cover the top eight, whether it's here or on the blog or whatever, it perpetuates more of the top eight into the next round because it won this top eight. And I wonder if does that sometimes stop people from being innovative and trying something new that maybe they thought was good, but then they see, no, I'll just do this because I know it's good and it'll win versus I think this is good, but I'm not 100% sure because I don't have enough reps with it yet. That's just interesting.
I would agree that like top eights generally like skew things, but we're really talking about the top 31.
Yeah.
You
yeah,
like
at least with regards to the Rebel faction. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like this is certainly like there was one list that had a winning record, which is
Right.
just like
Yeah. Interesting.
yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. All right. Well, let's close it out
Please.
then.
Jay, are you okay, man?
We'll see.
All right.
Okay.
All right. We are the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Jay.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.
Stay cool, fruit, Matt.
I'm Ron Burgundy.